combination of, having a system for milestones plus being personally, attached to what you're doing and have some personal curiosity. I think this is the best recipe for surviving,
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Scaling DevTools, the show that investigates how DevTools go from 0 to 1. I'm joined today by Matija Šošić from Wasp. Wasp is aiming to be the fastest way to build a full stack web app.
Thank you so much, Jack, for invitation. And super excited to be here and chat.
Could you tell us a little bit about Wasp and about yourself?
So, Wasp is technically a simple configuration language for building full stack web applications with React and Node.js. This is what we are supporting right now. So just very briefly, developers can describe their high-level functionalities like auth, CRUD API, data models, and, for example, running async jobs. So all that is declaratively described in what configuration language, and the rest of their business logic they can just write in their typical React and Node.js code. So we are trying to simplify a lot of this process of getting started, but also maintaining your full stack application going forward.
That sounds very useful and something that I think a lot about every time I want to start a project. You want to get going fast and not worry about all this stuff. So really cool to see what you're doing. Could you tell us about what it's been like?
Sure. I mean, there is a lot to talk about. There is the whole journey before Y Combinator, before the investment, just starting out with the idea. Then there is the journey after, just building the team, building the first version of the product. So should I just start from scratch, from the idea stage?
Yeah, we want to hear about the hardest parts.
Okay, cool. Hardest part. Yeah, hardest part is definitely not the idea. It is what comes after the idea. Actually trying to do it and not giving up. That is the hardest part. But yeah, I mean, it all started, my brothers, so co-founders are my twin brother, Martin, and myself. And we were always considering ourselves to be general software engineers. So we were never specifically going for web development. We were doing a lot of stuff like algorithms, machine learning, app development. But pretty much whatever we ended up doing, we always needed to build some sort of web app because you need to deliver your end solution somehow to users. And, funnily enough, next to all the algorithms and machine learning and the kind of cool stuff, web development was always the hardest part. So that was kind of what struck us back then. And we always felt every couple of years, we have to relearn the latest tech. We started from PHP and Java, then switched over to Backbone, jQuery, Angular then on the front end, and then finally React and Node.js. So we just felt, there's this huge amount of knowledge you have to go through every time just to build the same thing all over again. So this was finally our motivation. We said okay, there must be a better way, because we are just rebuilding all these common pieces. There should be some way to just specify, I want my auth, I want my async worker, I want my data models, which are propagated across the full stack. So this is what gave us an initial, inkling of idea for Wasp. So yeah, it all started when we were working in this company in London, kind of building the pretty complex web application for running mathematics analysis in the cloud. We had all the parts of front end, back end, spawning processes on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. So it was a pretty complex application. And this was kind of the final trigger, for it. So we started working on that idea while still working at that company. And in the end, we decided, just to go full time. We decided that we want to switch what we're doing. We got to the limit of what we could do there. And we kind of want to do something else. So, we just said, okay, in the meanwhile, while we are looking for a new job, we can just take a couple of months to play with the idea of Wasp. And in the end, this couple of months were 1 year. And then after 1 year, basically doing full time, just working on Wasp, we got into Y Combinator from the third attempt. And yeah, after 1 year, got into YC, raised our seed round, hired a team, and now we are basically there was alpha stage. Now we just released beta, and now we are going forward.
Yeah, I think the part that I find really cool is that it's such a big shift, right? You're building something that completely changes how people build their apps. So it's going to be really hard to build something kind of small and test that. So how did you kind of get around that challenge?
I mean, the tricky thing with Wasp, because kind of it started, as I said, it's a pretty different solution than, other approaches. I mean, typically all the frameworks are built as libraries. I mean, they start out, for example, as libraries, right? And then it's easier to start something, just build it, plug it in, try it out, see how it works, right? And, you have this incremental kind of approach to building it, which is great. But we felt, we don't want to build another, library or just runtime system. We want to have our own language, not a very complete language or anything, but still it kind of turns things a bit upside down and, it has to be kind of built from scratch. So yeah, as you said, like it's really hard to just build a little bit of it and get it running into production or get somebody to use it for their projects immediately. So this is, why we felt, okay, we have to, give proper focus on this. Plus, we'll probably need to, to raise funding at some point because it's not going to be self-sustainable until we develop the actual technology, which is this language part. So yeah, this was a challenge. And I think, this is also why there aren't many approaches. There are some attempts at this, but usually you will see like more incremental approaches to solving this problem and also other types of problems.
When you're not taking the kind of incremental approach, how do you get enough kind of feedback or like motivation, I guess, as well, like to kind of build such a big thing?
I think that's the hard part, especially motivation, even motivation by yourself. I think the hardest part is not even, coming up with the idea, not even actually working on an idea. The hardest part is not giving up. And basically because every day you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I actually working on this? This is so far away from, I don't know, from alpha, from beta, from anything. You have somebody just, using it. So I think that is the hardest part. You have to somehow convince yourself how to actually keep going. Every day make a decision, okay, I will keep going. So yeah, for us, we try to communicate, as much as possible with users. So for example, like, the first thing was just to come up with a landing page. It was a page just describing what we are doing, saying, hey, this is like going to be in your configuration language. The idea is you can still use your React and Node. So we are not trying to take you away from your existing stack, but we are trying to simplify some things. We are trying to provide like, a radically nicer developer experience, which we can achieve by this approach. And this is kind of roughly, how it's going to work. So of course, it was much less polished than it is today. It was something very different. It wasn't, so nicely divided. It was, of course, much less developed altogether, but it was the first step. So once we had the landing page, we also had the GitHub repo already, but, it wasn't in a state where somebody could go there and easily run Wasp. Like you actually had to compile, all the source code in Haskell, run it with no instructions. So it's really, really hard for anybody to try it out on their computer. So our goal was just, to get the word out, to get the idea out, and then get some initial feedback. We also have a blog post article which kind of describes, this process with some comments from Reddit and similar. So I think we first put it on Reddit, like several communities, like React.js, JavaScript, the programming languages. And we got, 10 uploads on Hacker News, 20 uploads on React or JavaScript. A few people said, okay, this is an interesting idea, but this is really hard to do. How are you going to do it? This is going to take a lot of time. I remember specifically, one guy told us, we are cheaters. This is just it's vaporware. This doesn't exist. What is this? I can't even try it out. So, we had a couple of people who called us crazy. But yeah, altogether, it was obvious that some people were excited about the idea, although they were pretty skeptical. Some people were just, okay, this is cool. I want to see how it develops. And yeah, a portion of people were just dismissing. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this was kind of the initial communication that we had, before we actually had anything for people to try out.
Did you kind of look at that, objectively, oh, should we carry on? Is this good feedback? Or was it you just had so much conviction, you were just going to build this thing?
I think it was a combination because it wasn't, we were kind of drawing a lot from our own experiences. We have been kind of senior developers at that point already. We have developed several complex web applications. Martin was doing stuff at Google and Palantir and similar. So we knew that, what we are doing theoretically makes sense. We knew, okay, there is something to it. We were also aware of the challenges, and there are still a lot of challenges that, we are not 100% sure what's the best way to overcome them and similar. So I think, we were experienced enough to know why we are doing this, but we weren't sure how far are we going to get and what's the end result going to be. So, even with this, it was super hard to stay you are never 100% sure. So the feedback was okay. For us, it was, I think it was more motivating for us, that we could just see somebody else be open to this idea and actually, grasping it the way we are describing it. Because I think also, the way we are describing the idea is also it's much more important. It's super important next to the actual idea. So that is also one thing that was changing, although maybe our idea itself wasn't changing so much, in our heads. But we just learned how to phrase it better and how to communicate it better. That was one of the biggest things we learned early from people who were checking us out.
How did it differ, what you started at and then how you describe it now?
Yeah, initially we were super excited, that we are building a new programming language. So, both Martin and I, we were kind of, we like this part of computer science. It's very cool, having fun with compilers and, especially working with Haskell, which is our compiler built in. So we were kind of pretty excited about that. And like, we are building a completely new programming language, that's going to be super cool. And, it's going to be so much easier. But, when you say out words programming language, it scares people. Especially, we kind of emphasize that part. And we haven't emphasized enough, you can still use your React and Node.js. We didn't even mention it because, we were proud that, the big idea was to be tech agnostic, like we can support React, Vue, or Go and Python on the backend. Is similar. So I think we haven't even been mentioning that on our landing page. And then naturally people got kind of, skeptical. Okay, why do I have to learn a new programming language? Like there is enough languages. I just have to learn a new one. I have to scratch all my knowledge from JavaScript. Like I'm not doing this, no way. So once we learned that, we kind of switched the narrative the other way around. So, we stopped saying, Wasp is a super cool new programming language. We just said, okay, Wasp is the super simple configuration language. And basically you get to plug in you get to use still mostly your React and Node.js code. And, we specifically said this is React, Node.js. It's almost like a web framework, pretty much the same thing. Don't think of it as a language. It is just like a super simple way to write your React and Node.js full stack web apps. And although, fundamentally nothing changed, our code stayed the same, everything stayed the same. It is just, that people started reacting much better to this message.
So you kind of made it seem like it's less required change.
Yeah, which it is. In fact, it is, because nothing changed even, from the functionality, because you really are writing your majority of your code in React and Node.js. It was just, we were so excited about the future, very much different future, which is not even there yet right now, that we kind of, forgot to just explain, look, this is nothing radical. You can just start now and build your stuff with the knowledge you have right now.
Yeah. And could you dig in a bit more to like how you're speaking to users today and like kind of how that's evolved the product?
So, so far, we had a couple of main mechanisms for communicating with users. So first of all, Martin and I, we built like 1 or 2 startups before. So we had an experience with customer development, which we learned, on the last job, which is super important. So even before starting Wasp out, although we had our own hunches, and, we felt like, okay, we know what the problem is, and we don't know what the solution is. We still wanted to verify that and learn more about the problem that we are going to solve. So even before, starting Wasp, we just, communicated with like 20 of our friends, people we knew, our developers, and conducted the problem interviews. So the problem interviews are usually, there's like a difference between, usually people go naturally with solution interviews, which is, hey, I built this solution, check it out. What do you think about my solution? Would you use it? Would you pay for it? And this is kind of, although it's very natural, it's, the wrong way to do it. If you go, with customer development, lean startup methodology, typically you should start with problem interview, basically asking, hey, what's your biggest problem in web development? Or, when starting a new full stack application, what's your biggest challenge? And then let people tell you, what's the first thing on their mind. And then if, the first thing on their mind is what you actually want to solve, that's great. You kind of, got the problem right. But if they are thinking of something completely else and, your problem doesn't even come up when they're chatting about it, without any soliciting, then that's maybe, like a red flag, like maybe it's not such an important problem. So yeah, even before starting with Wasp, we just wanted to conduct, this whole problem interview thing to get to know better feel of the space, what are the first features we want to build, because also it would help us prioritize the features we were building. So we just did about 25 of those. And basically, then we could cluster, like, answers in different clusters. Basically, like one part of people were like, it's pretty hard to start. Every time it's a new technology, I don't know, like the best practices, how to connect my React to GraphQL to Redux or whatever. Other parts are like, oh Jesus, like there's so much magic going on there. There's like different state. I don't even know what to choose. There's always a different thing. So we had like all these clusters. And then we could understand better, okay, what is actually the problem? What are people thinking about? How do they communicate about it? So we use that also to inform Wasp and also to inform our messaging on our landing page now and later.
Were you just interviewing like web developers as like a broad category, or were you
try to kind of have different, let's say, representatives? We had a couple of people from startups who were building their own products. We had a portion of people who are, working in web development agencies. So they're like developing other products using multiple technologies. And we even have like a couple of brand managers, who were maybe coding directly, but they were experiencing, paid through their developers. So we were asking them, how does it look to them from the outside? What are developers, struggling with the most? So yeah, it was mostly all developers, but they were like in different roles. Some were like more front end, some were more back end, some were full stack, some were startups, some were bigger companies, agencies. So we had a range of interviewees.
And I know you've mentioned previously that you kind of have different, you segment your users slightly, as the needs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we even learned a lot just by putting it out, putting the word out and see, who are the people who are going to get excited and engage with you in either positive or negative way. So I think so far, we have identified, I would say, kind of two main or maybe like three main crowds of people that, engage with Wasp and are excited about it. I mean, the big thing is also like, in which stage you are. So I would say given this alpha beta stage is like one type of people, and moving forward, it's going to be probably a different type of people. That's also something that should be taken into account. I think, it's also maybe a mistake sometimes to kind of think, people that are excited about my product right now are the only people that are ever going to be excited about my product. Thus the market is too small, or thus, it's not all who I want to serve. I think that's something that should be, very much accounted for when, thinking who is actually interested in what you're doing. So for Wasp, I think especially now in alpha, and we just got beta out, we have like a lot of people who will just want to get their React and Node.js application running. So maybe they're a bit more on the junior side, they just finished bootcamp, or they just started out, or they are more like front-end developers. And basically they're super excited about the Wasp, just giving them all the tools and all the best practices to get their application up and running. So all they have to do is just, write Wasp start, everything is running. Then they have Wasp built, deployed to Heroku or Fly or Render, and it's going. And, we also cover a lot of stuff on this kind of CRUD stuff. So you don't have to define the API. They basically handle all this for you under the hood. You just have to define your data model, and you have it accessible everywhere, on client, on server. You update everything as it happens. So like, let's say a lot of stuff are just handled for you. And I think there's like, good amount of developers who want to trust us that we are doing it in the best possible way. And, they just want to build their application, and they don't really care, is it like Redux under there, or GraphQL, or React Query, which we are using now, by the way. They just want to use, what we offer to them, and, just somebody else handle it. I want to write my own business logic. So yeah, I would say that is one portion of developers that we are seeing that are using Wasp a lot. But I would say also on the other hand, we have identified some more senior developers, like people from eBay, Airbnb, Lyft, Facebook. A portion of them even became our angel investors, after they saw Wasp in action and got excited. I would say they are kind of, they kind of, look more into the future of Wasp, together with us. They are senior developers who, are leading teams in their companies, and they see how it could be useful in the future. Both in the sense of, making it easier for like the junior developers and their teams to get speed and get up running, without all the mistakes you could do, while building a full stack web app. And on the other hand, being stack agnostic, supporting like React on one hand, Vue on the other hand, or, just making like a standardized way for building and deploying, typical business web applications. So there, I would say that is a smaller amount of people. Because of course, like, they are maybe like, less around or bitter, or they're more busy with other stuff, or, they have their own stuff going on. But it's very motivating to have such a group of people, who share the bigger vision for product.
You mentioned Twitter there, and like this kind of juniors and wanting something like best practices. Could you talk about how you've been reaching them?
So, I mean, so far we have used multiple methods, just kind of saying to others what we are doing. So our main methods so far were launches. So, like launches on Hacker News, ProHunt, and Reddit. Those are the most successful ones. And I think we have pretty much been using almost exclusively only this. Starting, with this thing even before alpha, when we just put our landing page that was Reddit. And then when we had our first version that could anybody, just try out, we called it alpha. And that was just after we got into YC. I think the biggest traffic came from Product Hunt, Hacker News, and like React.js, JavaScript. So we were mostly focusing on those just because, we didn't have time. Actually, it was only Martin and me. And we didn't have resources to do any kind of more extensive marketing. I mean, we also started our Discord channel. So we have our Discord server where people can come in and ask questions. So this is now becoming much more I would say important because we have more people in the community and they're asking questions. But before it was mostly like external marketing, basically doing external launches. And it was working surprisingly well, especially Reddit, because on Hacker News, it's always kind of, hit or miss. Sometimes you get big, sometimes, you just go by. So you have to try several times. But even that went well after YC. But before YC, Reddit was super good. I'm not sure why, but, we just posted on several subreddits like React.js, JavaScript. And I think we got like 200, 300 upvotes and people commenting, trying it out. So I think this was the biggest, initial source of people coming to Wasp.
Yeah. What do you think you did well on the Reddit posts?
I'm not sure actually, we were trying out different stuff. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think in the end, kind of our signature, which my brother is using, he would always say, hey, my brother and I, we built a new web framework, which is actually a DSL. But he always put this, my brother and me in that part. Not sure if that got real people interested. But I think maybe it gave it like a bit of a personal touch, it wasn't just, just another framework somebody's trying to push, or some companies trying to push their own product they have been building. I think maybe that gave it a bit of personality. Hey, this is my brother and me, we are trying to do something. It's only us, give us a hand. That's what you think.
Yeah. So I guess anyone that's also building a developer tool with their sibling can use that right now. That makes sense though, to make it more personal. I really like that.
Just kind of try not to be, hey, we're just another, or, we are a web framework for X, Y, and it sounds very robotic, right? There has to be some, I think, personality around it.
And did you do that on Hacker News as well? Or?
Yeah, we did as well, because, you can basically write like the first text is like, your first comment can basically describe your journey, what you're doing. So this is also what kind of is, typical YC format. So we could also describe in details, hey, we are Martin and Matija, we encountered this problem, we wanted to solve it, this is what you're doing right now. So we could tell our story in the first section.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how you've got to such a advanced level with just launches.
Yeah, we were actually pretty surprised, with the positive feedback from the audience, especially, even before it was just it was barely alpha, right? Like you could just write out maybe. So we were surprised it went so well. I'm not sure what was the reason. I mean, I guess, we also adjusted our messaging several times due to the interviews we were doing. So I guess that was already kind of, improved compared to before. And yeah, I guess, also people just resonated with the problem of boilerplate in the web development. Yeah, I think we also often use get rid of boilerplate in full stack web development.
I think just the final question, Matija, if you had a friend who was doing a similar thing to you with Wasp, and they were coming to you for advice and being like, what should I do? What kind of things would you focus on?
It is building, for example, a developer tool, right?
Yeah, let's say kind of a Wasp, but slightly different, not a competitor. But...
I think the biggest thing is, convincing yourself not to give up and how to do it. It was a thing that was bothering us for a while, especially my brother, because I think for us, developers, the biggest fear is, this opportunity cost, right? Oh, I'm doing this. I could have been at Google or some other huge company giving me a ton of money. Why am I even bothering with this? I'm just wasting my time and, all the money that I could have earned, right? So I think this is kind of the biggest, question that we ask ourselves every day. And I think, it's good to have a system, to have a system for it. Because if you don't have a system, how to think about it, and you just every day try to decide if you are quitting or not, that is the hardest part. Because then you spend all of your willpower, you spend it on this thing. First half of the day, you are battling. Why am I doing this? Should I keep doing it? Then you barely do something. And then, another thing in the morning, you are doing the same thing and you are basically not doing anything in the end. It was very hard for us. I think also, especially for Martin, he's always a bit more on the worrying side. And I know he's worrying, so I worry less. So it's how we divide. And he also knows it. So in the end, we came up with the system and we said, look, it doesn't make sense to worry every day because we are not getting anything done. We should come up with some sort of a milestone. Okay, we have been doing this for 3 months. Let's say we know that what we want to achieve. Let's do this in the next 3 months. And then, if this alpha version that we got out doesn't get any traction, if nobody, likes it, nobody gives us any good feedback, then we know it doesn't work. I mean, it basically what happened. We got it out, we got some, okay. I mean, it's never super clear in the end because of course, it's always it's never a success immediately or failure immediately. But I think, just getting that next milestone is going to help you not to worry every day and, to focus on actually executing stuff until you reach that milestone. So for us, we reached that, we got the alpha, we said, okay, there is some feedback, great, we applied to YC, we even got to the final stage of the interviews. That was motivating. Let's keep going. And, now our next milestone is going to be, get these free features and again, do marketing and launch on all the platforms and see what happens. So we did that, and every time it was a bit better than we expected. And in the end, we had signals that made us curious. I think it's important to be curious. In the end, if you're not curious about what you're doing, if it is just opportunistic, it's a new Chat GPT thing, I have to do my Chat GPT thing because now it's time to do it. And then if it fails, you're going to lose motivation. Oh, obviously it doesn't work. For us, we had a million of these it doesn't work moments, but we don't get a million of moments. But what if we do this? We were super curious. Okay, I know this doesn't make sense right now, but what if we did this? How would it look like? So we had a lot of these ideas that we just wanted to personally try out for ourselves because we were just curious. We were genuinely curious how it's going to turn out. So I think, just having this component when you are building stuff for yourself and you are discovering stuff yourself, that's basically what they keep you going. Yeah, combination of, having a system for milestones plus being personally, attached to what you're doing and have some personal curiosity. I think this is the best recipe for surviving, this kind of valley until nobody believes in you, including yourself.
That's all we've got time for. Before you share where people can find out more, I want to shout out your blog because I think it's great. You share a lot of learnings along the way. There's technical stuff, but there's also a lot of blog posts about how you struggled and overcame stuff on the kind of marketing side and, testing out your beta program and how you got your GitHub stars. So I think it's really a great blog that people should check out. But where else can people learn more about Wasp and about Matija?
I think one thing is blog, which you mentioned, and we try to build in public and basically document everything we do as we go. So getting GitHub stars, just getting to the idea, getting first 2,000 stars, running alpha testing program, what's well, what was wrong. The other point of touch is our Discord. So feel free to join our Discord. You'll find it on our landing page. We have a lot of discussions there. We propose new features. We help the people who are trying it out.
Awesome. And we'll put all the links in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining, Matija. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back again next week.